Hello, everybody. Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan Living Life with Purity. And today I want to talk a little bit about perceptions versus reality and what is going on in the world right now and what went on in the world in the past. Now, many of you viewers aren't old enough to remember the cola wars. Back in the 1960s, there was a marketing cola war that took place between Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. And Pepsi-Cola was trying to emerge into the market and try to take some of the market share that Coca-Cola had built up since the 1920s very strongly. Coca-Cola took off really hard really after they came up with their Santa Claus campaign, and I think that was in around 1928. I'm not certain about that, but it's been about 100 years. And they were the ones that really popularized the modern day vision that we have of Santa Claus with the bright red coat, big beard, the colorful, warm, inviting character. Before that, Santa Claus had been kind of a more rugged, older sort of look to him, more brownish in his coat rather than red, the cheery Coca-Cola red type of thing. But it was still the same Santa Claus, just Coca-Cola gave it a big facelift and upgrade that made it more popular and cuddly for kids, if you will. But perceptions versus reality and how it worked in the cola market. So I was getting ready to have my morning breakfast, and I had this lovely muffin that I was given, and I was thinking about it that I don't know if I really wanted to eat the whole muffin, but I wanted some of it. And it came upon me, do I want to split it in part, or do I want to just pull some off of it and break it off and eat it, like a bohemian. So just rip it apart with your hands and chew it down. So the bohemian nature of just eating with your hands and claws and tearing it apart. So that was kind of the method I was looking at doing here. But it came upon me about segmenting the cola market during the cola wars and what happened. And what happened is Coca-Cola had the dominant share in the marketplace. Pepsi was coming on trying to be the new kid on the block and get itself some market share and take on the national distribution. And they were going about that, and they were doing okay, but they weren't doing great. So what they had to do is look at, do we have a differentiation in product that we can talk about that's going to move the market? There really wasn't a whole lot of difference in the brown cola industry. Pepsi had a little bit more fizz to it with a little more carbonation. And I think they had a little bit of a lemony snap to it that Coca-Cola didn't have. So there were some minor differences to it. I think Coca-Cola might have felt a little heavier on the tongue and the palate a little bit than the Pepsi did. And that may have had to do with the carbonation in it, but Pepsi had to find a differentiating factor to make it more marketable and to find a lane that they could go in and they could maximize their exposure on. So what they did was they decided that it wasn't really the product that needed to change, it was the perception about the product that needed to change. Because at that time, everyone pretty much felt that Coca-Cola was the it cola. And as far as marketing went and sales went, it was. It had a dominant factor out there, had a very lovely appeal with its bottle, especially if anyone remembers the old 10-ounce bottles out of the vending machines. It was an iconic look. And so Coca-Cola really had the marketplace shored up. So Pepsi had its work cut out for it. So Pepsi wanted to come in, and they wanted to get a little bit of a piece of the market. So they bid off a little bit of the market share, and they started off with one of their programs was, I think they started off with, "Come alive, you're the Pepsi generation." And this was in the early 60s. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to go after the youth because that was a more sustained marketplace. If they could get them to buy their brand and become tied to that brand the rest of their life, they had a lifetime customer. So This is why you go after the children with an idea or a market plan or something you want to sell. You go after the kids because you have a longer entrenchment in the marketplace. So it just makes sense for numbers. So Pepsi went after the youth. So the first thing they came out with was, come alive, you're the Pepsi generation. You're different. You're special. Does any of this sound familiar to what's going on in the world today? Well, think about it. We'll get there. And then Pepsi came in with the choice of a new generation. And this kind of amplified and entrenched the previous message that they were putting out there. And this started getting them a little bit more of the marketplace. So they took another bite. And so they had the choice of a new generation. You had the hippie thing going on in the 60s. You had this new way of thinking about things that was being popular about, screw the man type of thing, fight the system, this type of stuff. It was black power. It was all these things were coming about with the Civil Liberties Act and Civil Rights Act. But it was all kind of coming together at the same time. And so there was all this focus on newness and differentiation and division. So it took more. So after we had the choice of a new generation, then they wanted to segment it even more, not just a new generation, but young people. And this was going against the brand of the older system, the man, so to speak, that was going on. So they came up with a program, an ad program that said, now it's Pepsi for those who think young. So if you were thinking old, if you were an old fuddy, if you were an old fart, if you were the man, if you were part of the system, you drank Coke. But if you were cool and young and innovative and thinking and you had an open mind about things, woke, if you were in that category, you drank Pepsi. And you had a serious disdain for people who drank Coca-Cola because to you, they represented an old idea and an old way of thinking. This wasn't reality. This was a perception of what reality was. And this was fed to them by advertisers. And they were very, very successful. So what they came up with then next was, now that they had this division between older people, younger people, a different way of thinking, the old way of thinking was old and outdated. It needed to be replaced by a new way of thinking, this newness. So a lot of people today that think that they're on the right track with this woke ideology and this progressive thought, there's nothing new about this. This stuff was played out in the 19-teens. It was played out in the 1950s. It was played out in the 1960s and 70s. This is just old rehashed, talking points in attempts to divide and conquer. Many times it's successful because the population isn't that bright. As a general rule, I'm sorry, but the majority of people in this world are just not that bright. They might be intelligent about things, but they're not that bright to put things together. And so their overlapping of being able to take concepts and putting them together and understand exactly what's happening before them isn't that well put together in our general population. So this is why with our schools we need to focus on the quality of the education, and we need to extol the virtues of higher learning and not just spending time and wasting resources by going to these places to party and get your head filled with lots of social sciences and things like that that are really not tested, but they're more like conceptual things to give you a better perception of your reality and make you feel happier about your relationship with this new product or the progressive thinking. So you understand, I think, where this is going. They're preaching to the choir in these things, and they're trying to get more choir members to come in and sing these silly songs that they're putting out there. So they came up with the general slogan to try to change the behavior and the perception at the lunch diner to not accept a Coca-Cola, but to ask for Pepsi. say Pepsi, please. This was sort of a call to, take a pledge, if you will, in the marketplace. And right now you see a lot of people wanting you to take some form of a pledge in the way that you go about your workday or your communications with other people, is that you have to bend the knee to these progressive thinkings. This is their way of making you take this pledge. It adapts your daily behavior to their agenda. So they're using you. Be careful about this. So when Pepsi finally was trying to get some sort of differentiation in the marketplace, because they had already divided, now they wanted more. So they were trying to get more of a differentiation, and they came up with the slogan of taste that beats the others cold, meaning that theirs tasted better all the way around, but it was cold, and it was a fine way of, kind of making this play on words. More market. So they had this ad campaign going of taste that beats the others cold, and people were drinking more and more Pepsi, but there came some blowback from the Coca-Cola people says, we don't think yours tastes any better. We think it actually tastes worse than Coke. It seems to be a less quality product. So Coca-Cola people tried to attack the quality and the actual taste buds of the Pepsi drinkers. So you can't fight somebody's perception. You can't change their perception about something unless they decide to change. This is not something that they will really go towards facts on. It's going to be more about their feelings. Perceptions are. So once somebody has decided and have a perception about something, they are not going to accept factual debates on it because their feelings won't accept it. So this is what's going on in the world right now with our perceptions versus reality. Too many people out there have these perceptions about how things are and not looking at the reality of what is actually going on before them because their feelings won't allow them to sunken costs that they have into their feelings about their perceived reality. Brought it the long way around, but it all connects. So when Coca-Cola started pushing back on the whole taste thing with Pepsi, Pepsi decided they had to go out and defend their logic and their statements. And so that's when they had the Pepsi Taste Challenge. And this is when they started having man-on-the-street type taste tests with the public. And they would have two blind glasses there, and people would drink this one, that one, which do they prefer? And if they chose Pepsi, then that result got put on the ad and things like that. So Pepsi had to go out and sort of defend their statements about these things, but they went out with highly edited, highly polished ad campaigns, not showing anyone in their whole thing choosing a Coca-Cola over Pepsi, which you would think that it would be about a 50-50 split, but their ads were so edited that it was only Pepsi that got chosen, which is you wouldn't want to show the competitor in a kind light, so you go with your product out there. That's what they did. So it was to a lot of people very, very convincing that it was the Pepsi was the choice of everybody, but it really wasn't. They just kind of cooked the books on the ad campaign. So it was a little bit dishonest, but it was effective. But nobody ever said that advertisers can't, sort of polish the lemon a little bit if they want to. So Pepsi had to go and back it up, and now they've got, I don't know if they got half the marketplace, but they got a much fuller share of the marketplace now out there. And I don't know exactly who else may have cut into their marketplace, but I'm sure that the other bottled drinks and these energy drinks and things like that have taken a big toll on the marketplace all around. But that's not the discussion. The discussion we're having today is about perceptions and reality. So with what is going on in the world right now, this same playbook that Pepsi did with this whole divide and conquer, don't worry about the facts, change the perception. That's what's been going on with the woke ideology in this world, and with people trying to change your perceived relationship with an idea or a fact that's already in evidence. So they went after our girls, our young ladies. They've changed their perceptions about things, and they don't care what facts are. Because if you hit them with facts of truths about things, they want to fight you, and they want to battle back, because their brains can't accept the contest with their feelings and the sunken costs they have into it as well. So we are kind of working this big psychological loop in people's brains that's going on. It's very, very effective. And this is what's going on. It's going to get worse. They're going to be using more gaslighting, is what is used to falsify facts to help build their perception about things. They say, don't look at that. This is what's really going on. This is the perception about things, even though they don't bring any facts to the argument, just feelings. So the old cola wars are being reignited with different products these days. And one of these things is about the number of genders in the human sphere, going against previous known facts about things, previous known, meanings of words, what their definitions are. They're trying to upend all of the factual relationships you had to try to put in perceptions. And this is what happens a lot in our school system with our educational forces. It's not about the facts of a matter, it's about the perceptions and feelings about these things as you go forward. Whether that be with race relationships, sexual relationships, family relationships, government relationships, educational relationships, and then especially about religious relationships or spiritual thinking. So they're not looking at the facts of the matter, how we got here. They're trying to change the perceptions about these things. They're going after the pillars of our society, pillars of our communities, our culture, to try to change perceptions so that you will bend to their desires. In the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.